would certainly be in line with your house. You've got to have a more favorable place to put your money, and at this point, it will go with the market. There's one thing that may change a little bit is that, and with respect to this industry, there is retail beyond the mall, and the major retailers have discovered that there are a whole bunch of little stores on this street. We've got to make those go away before we can do our infill development. And so the notion of sensitive infill development and the much harder work of moving into the urban centers where the baby boom echo is relocating away from the suburbs is going to be the challenge for how retailers and landlords follow them into the cities. This is a North American-wide phenomenon. It is considerably harder work. It's location specific. It requires tremendous public engagement, and it actually requires urban planning understanding to deal with each one of those. Small retailers have done this for quite some time. Starbucks doesn't have a prototype. God bless them. And it is, you know, as a retailer, and I know this may give heartburn to some, but the sooner two terrible, terrible forms of automation go away in retail, the better. The first is the end of the planogram, which standardizes your error for what should be on every shelf in every store. And the other is the prototype, which does the same thing with the box. And what is going to be required in urban centers is that residents associations aren't going to let you get away with that, but when you actually do embrace those unique aspects of urban planning, partnerships will take place and you actually have sustainable programs. So if Walmart's urban 90 can be an urban 60 or an urban 110, and it has an architecture that suits the locale, you won't have the, oh my gosh, there's a Walmart coming reaction in infill areas that simply didn't take place in sparsely populated suburban greenfield developments. So this embracing of whether you want to follow your customers into the city is one you need to make a decision on, because it's going to be a whole lot harder work for each and every one of those investments, and assessing the retail potential for each of those is there. But the investment potential is then moving away from the more standardized and predictable notion of mall-based investments that a REIT would look at. It's now a single site, and it requires what Robert Simpson and Timothy Eaton did when they located their stores in a city center.
Bob, if I just make some comments on that, Jim is absolutely right. We've been at urban infilling for over 10 years now. We saw the opportunity, and the interesting thing is to try to accommodate your prototype in a non-prototypical built form. And what we discovered, there were a couple of things that we experienced. One was developers were completely incapable of figuring this out, and we understood our needs. We had the capability to self-develop real estate, had the planning and design and construction capability to design multi-tenant, multi-level properties that made sense for us from a financial perspective. One of the first that we did, pardon me, was at the corner of Canby and Broadway in Vancouver. We took an existing store, we assembled a little bit of land around it. We developed a multi-level building there with a 40,000 square foot Best Buy there, so it's on a hill. So we were able to use the hill to develop access points to a Best Buy that's basically, you enter at a mezzanine level and go down, and there's a 90,000 square foot Canadian Tire that sits on top. We've got service bays, a rooftop garden center on a green roof with rooftop parking. Our economic model at that time was to write a lease on the Canadian Tire store and then do a sale leaseback, which we did with RioCan. And Eddie Sunshine said at the real estate forum that year that he bought the building for the plant. And so this urban infilling and the ability...
And the residents love you.
Yeah, and it fits in there.
Corridor that's really significant.
Yeah, and it's certainly, and it's on public transit. It's on the Canada line, and you know, an example in Toronto, we have a couple of urban stores. Well, we probably have. Well, there's the old one at Yonge Davenport, the original multi-level urban store. We have the store being in Dundas, and the one we did at Leslie and Lakeshore, which is, I think, the first development actually completed in the Portlands. But that one we started with, because it's landfill, we knew that we were going to have to do piles. I think there's something like 600 piles on that site. So we said once we were doing that, we would pop the building up in the air and bring it out to the street and have the parking underneath the building, and hence not visible. So it worked from a planning perspective, and it's been a very successful storm for us. But the trick is, and again, we have service bays and a garden center in that building. So, and I don't think a developer would have been capable of figuring that in.
And similarly, the merchants have to think differently about locating a store in a building beside a Best Buy, and downstairs from a university.
Yeah.
Tremendous latitude there, where others would have said prototype doesn't fit, so the site gets discounted.